This is Rick Malone for the San Francisco Symphony. Till Eulenspiegel is one of the classic trickster figures of Western civilization. He may or may not have lived in Germany in the 14th century, tweaking the noses of the rich and privileged, challenging the powerful, and poking fun at conventional morality. Even though there is no overt moralizing in the tales about him, many of his adventures involve him taking people literally, pointing out the absurdities of conventional life by acting on exactly what they say rather than what they mean. For instance, when told to take your seat in court, he picks up the chair and walks out. Some versions of the legend say he died of the plague. Others that the authorities eventually got tired of his antics and had him arrested and hanged. But he's still a beloved character in Germany. There are statues of him in many of the towns where he traveled, and at least 6 films have been based on his adventures. Richard Strauss was already a famous composer in 1895 when he started thinking about writing an opera based on Till Eulenspiegel's adventures. It must have seemed like the perfect subject, a protagonist who's a wily, independent rogue who follows his own paths, tells unpalatable truths, takes jabs at conventional society, and makes fools of pompous authority figures, all with a rather scatological sense of humor. But eventually, Strauss realized that the episodic nature of the stories wouldn't work for opera. There was no room to develop the character and no consistent storyline that he could build to a grand climax. But it was perfect for a tone poem set as a rondo, a musical form structured like a modern pop song, with verses that can explore different musical ideas, but that always return to a familiar repeating chorus. What Strauss ended up writing was one of the most sophisticated pieces of musical humor ever created. At the premiere of Till Eulenspiegel's Merry Pranks in 1895, Strauss was asked to provide program notes outlining what each of the various episodes in the piece represented. The tales would have been familiar to anyone in his audience, but he decided against a detailed program, saying that what I had in mind when writing the various sections, if put into words, would often seem peculiar and would possibly even give offense. So let us this time leave it to the audience to crack the nuts which the rogue has prepared for them. All that is necessary to the understanding of the work is to indicate the 2 Eulenspiegel themes which are run right through the work in all manner of disguises, moods, and situations." End quote. Well, those 2 Eulenspiegel themes are the ones that open the piece. The first is the sweet and very Viennese opening melody in the violins. The second is the famous horn call that breaks in immediately. The violin melody is about as cozy as can be, and it almost begs for the horn call that follows. It's the trickster peeking around the door, ready for a chance to cause a ruckus. The horn melody gets more and more cheeky, and then, like one mischief maker infecting a group of well-behaved children, it spreads to the oboes, then the clarinets. The bassoons, contrabassoons, violas, and cellos get into the act, and suddenly, Till has the whole orchestra in his grip. The introduction ends with Till metaphorically sticking out his tongue at us. The solo D clarinet has a 7-note phrase which Strauss marked to be played merrily, and for the last note, the oboes and English horn hit a sharp chord that just happens to be one of music's great raspberries. It's the iconic Tristan chord, the ethereal chord from Wagner's monumental music drama Tristan and Isolde. It was a sound that was almost sacred for some German musicians of the day, and even now, it's credited as the chord that began the era of musical modernism. But for Strauss and Till, it's only the beginning of the adventure. Even though Strauss didn't specify which of Till's escapades he included in the piece, one is unmistakable. Till gets scolded by the local clergy, played by the trumpets. And in response, he climbs the church steeple and relieves himself. At one point, he crashes a country feast. And tries to act civil. But he can't help strutting around and making trouble. Finally, the local authorities have had enough, and Till is arrested. And sentenced. We hear his march to the scaffold, and the mourning song of the townspeople after his death. When Strauss was an old man, a friend asked him if he had realized the heights of musical and philosophical humor that he had reached with Till Eulenspiegel. Strauss replied, "Oh no, I just wanted to give the people in the concert hall a good laugh for once." End quote. Could be, but in the end, it's Till that gets the last laugh. This is Rick Malone for the San Francisco Symphony.